So what we did, I've got a largely millennial and Gen Z staff. And so what we did is we wrote out all 89. I said, okay, I'm going to start off with a video on why this is so important.
I want to ask you a question around the difference between the policies and procedures approach and the people approach. So I've heard from a lot of law firm owners, some of them think, if you hire the right people, I tend to be on the people side. If you hire the right people, you don't really need to create a ton of detailed policies and procedures. If you hire people who are maybe a little less experienced, you're probably gonna have to gravitate more towards the policy and procedures route. So where would you say you're at on this spectrum, and what's contributed most to your success? Are you more people focused? Are you more policy focused? Would you say you're 50-50?
I'm probably 50-50. I think that in an ideal market, if we're talking about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, we could hire almost anybody and they would have a ton of experience and we weren't having to pay a ton of money for that person. I'm sure that I am similarly situated to a lot of people that are listening right now, and that hiring, for example, a paralegal right now is incredibly, incredibly difficult. If I could find a paralegal out there that had tons and tons of experience, that would be great, but those people don't exist. They just don't. I have combed through basically all of Las Vegas. There's a finite number of them and they don't have the experience that we need, or they're not looking. And so what we did is we opened it up nationwide. And so I'm looking for just any paralegal that has experience as a paralegal. I can teach you Nevada and we can implement those policies and procedures. I probably lean a little bit more towards people, but in a market like this, I just don't think that it exists, Bill. And I think that we have to really focus on policies and procedures to get the results that we want.
That is such a key insight, right? For everyone listening, what an amazing insight. If you can't find the person with the experience you need, then you're going to have to become more policy and procedure driven, because you're going to have to train people up, which leads to my question around your belief on training. What are your beliefs around training your team, and how important is this to the success of a business?
In our practice, I want consistent results. So I view Bighorn Law, when people say why should I hire Bighorn Law? I think it's two things. One, we get results, and two, you're gonna have a good client experience. In order for me to have both of those that I can replicate time after time after time again, I have to have policies and procedures. It used to be when we had 6 offices in the Valley, we had 6 little mini law firms, and 6 little mini law firms that did whatever they wanted to do, whatever the main attorney that was there wanted them to do. And what happens when you do that is you've got 6 very different sets of results, and that doesn't often lead to a great client experience. And so I have focused very much, especially this year in particular, in documenting all of our policies and procedures. So I started with our claims department, our pre-lit department, and I wrote out a list of every single thing. If I was going to do a module on this, every single thing, and it was 89 different topics. I know that handling property damage for a motorcycle is different than handling property damage for a car. And so those have to really be 2 different modules. So what we did, I've got a largely millennial and Gen Z staff. And so what we did is we wrote out all 89. I said, okay, I'm going to start off with a video on why this is so important. And so we have an in-house videographer. I explained this is why handling property damage for motorcycles is so different from a car. Starting with the why, I can tell you right now, if you've got a millennial, and I'm a millennial, so I can say this with authority, if you've got a millennial or a Gen Z person on your team, they will not do anything, unless they understand why it is that they're doing it. If you don't tell them, they think it's dumb and unimportant, and they're just not going to do it. So I always start off with the why. This is why we're doing it. Those videos, I can tell you they're anywhere from 30 seconds. And we use Trainual for this, by the way. So we've got them all uploaded into Trainual. The first video is the why. The second is the written policy and procedure. It's maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs each. That is it. It's not long. And then the final one is a screen record. So for example, if there's a doc gen letter, then we have a little screen record that shows how to generate the letter. This allows my team, so no matter where my team is all across the country, and I've got people all over the country, as well as some remote team members out in India and New Delhi, no matter where they are, they have access to these modules. They can go through, they can download them, they can watch them, they can stream them, whatever it is that they need, so that they're not having to constantly come to me and say, how do I handle property damage for a motorcycle case again? This has allowed us to have a lot of very, very consistent results across the board. And honestly, it was so nice for me to get that knowledge out of my brain, upload it into Trainual, so I don't have to keep telling people how to handle property damage.
I also want to point out something I didn't elaborate on that I think is brilliant that you did for the paralegal position, is instead of tolerating that there wasn't enough of a pool in Vegas, you edited your recruiting geography to
Right.
a wider radius, like nationwide. And if you're looking for a needle in a haystack role, that's, for everyone listening, that's an immediate thing everyone can do right now. It's certainly risky if your firm doesn't have policies and procedures set up, because you're not going to be as well able to manage that person virtually if you're more of a face-to-face firm. But such a good point. Like, don't just tolerate, oh, there's no paralegals, I'll just sacrifice all my growth until a paralegal comes around locally, you know?
Let me jump on that for just a second, because this is a little bit newer for us, and I really pushed for this. When we opened it in the city of Las Vegas, when we were looking for paralegals, it would go days and days and days with 0 applicants. The first 24 hours that I had it online for an international search with remote work 100%, we had 89 applicants within 24 hours. By the way, all of them experience paralegals. Every single one of them experience paralegals. And so don't be afraid to do that. We're a 100% cloud-based firm, and so we can support it. All of our paralegals have a legal assistant that is on site. So things like printing and stuff like that, that's the legal assistant's job. But for us hiring paralegals remote, honestly, my paralegals that are remote workers, and we have them all over the country, are happier as well. I don't know what it is, but they're happier. And so they're doing very, very well for their own standard of living. Don't be afraid to do that. We do require all of our paralegals to come to Las Vegas for 2 weeks of on-site training. So that's how we're handling that. And then everything else is remote.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your time and some of your most effective strategies. And man, you are crushing it. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Bill. And thank you to your team. I appreciate you guys.